So none of these things that you were saying really surprise me, but they may positively shock other people who are hearing this broadcast tonight.
I would hope that they don't shock people who hear it tonight, because we're talking about something that is almost decades old now, and I think that at this point it is literally safe to talk about, and in a sense we need to speak about it, because we have come to a juxtaposition in our history with our military where we really have to ask ourselves exactly what are we going to do when the boys come home, and girls. And we have to come to grips with the fact that since the Vietnam War, the overwhelming majority of homeless people are veterans. And so the military experience has not been good to them. And I could go into the bureaucratic reasons as to why so many of the Vietnam veterans were homeless. It started because the Vietnam War was such that with the draft going on, you spent 3 months in basic training. Then you spent about 9 months over there, 10 months if you were a Marine, in theater. And as soon as you gathered all that experience, you went home. And the military was losing all these combat experienced veterans. If somebody's lived through 9 or 10 months of combat, you want them back to teach other troops, because boot camp doesn't do it. So what the military did, and this started in 1947, the same year as the Roswell incident, what the military did was they introduced this severance code, known as an SBP, I believe, but it consisted of 3 numbers or 3 letters or a combination of each, and it was no less than about 5,000 different things that symbolized. And the SBP was almost always overwhelmingly negative, and the officer had total free reign over whatever he wanted to say. And so whatever code was assigned on your DD-214 form, you were required to show it any time you were seeking employment. And as a result, anybody could look this up at any corporation or any corner store and find out what your SPP stood for. And overwhelmingly, it was SPN, a separation program number. Now I remember it correctly. They did away with it in about 1973, about 2 years before they Vietnamized the Vietnam War and gave Vietnam back to the Vietnamese, so to speak. And but what happened with all those codes is that they would say anything from bedwetter to your chaplain feels you're irreligious, to sexual deviant, to homosexual, to child molester, to anything you can think of that's negative would be covered in 5,000 negative ways. And as a result, none of these veterans could get jobs, and the Army was hoping they would sign up for Vietnam again to get 3 squares and a place to sleep, so to speak, even if it's in a tent in a rainy field. But Vietnam was obviously so bad, most of them chose homelessness. And that for that reason, there are more veterans suffering from homelessness from the Vietnam War than there are people who are officially recognized as having died in the Vietnam War. Now,
well, I personally think that's a disgrace.
Oh, it's disgusting. Yes, it's disgusting. And but even after doing away with that subversion of people's lives, we still have an enormous amount of homelessness amongst the military today. And we have to ask ourselves, why? And the reason why is because the bureaucracy is not treating veterans correctly. They aren't being treated as human beings in many respects. And some of them may get a good experience, and some of them may come out of it all right, but obviously a lot of them aren't. So when I bring up these issues, it's out of respect for the veterans we're going to be bringing home. And certainly my father was in the Navy for almost 30 years. It was actually over 30 years. And he was one of the original China sailors. My father was born in 1919. And when the Pan Am was sunk in China, my father was 18 years old. And he was in China at the time on a river patrol boat. And these river patrol boats were all Spanish-American war relics going up and down the Chinese River, patrolling and basically maintaining American imperialism and colonialism through gunboat diplomacy. And so with my father's experience like that, he came out of Asia after both that experience in warlord China, World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam with no less than a dozen medals. And he was a wreck. It took years to heal him from that. And so with him as a veteran, myself as a veteran, I hope that people understand I'm speaking from a sense of the greatest empathy. And
all right.